courtroom was quiet that morning, the kind of calm that only comes from routine. People sat in the benches waiting for their names to be called, waiting for their chance to explain a parking ticket or a speeding fine. Judge Frank Caprio sat at the bench warm-eyed, steady, and patient, just as he always did. He had seen thousands of cases, thousands of stories, thousands of moods, but today the courtroom would witness something no one there would ever forget. The door swung open, not gently, not quietly, but with the sharp snap of someone entering who believed the world should move for them. A woman walked in. Expensive heels, designer handbag, sunglasses still on even though the room was well lit. Every step she took was loud, not because of the shoes, but because of the attitude she carried. Her name was Vanessa. She didn't look at anyone. Didn't nod. Didn't acknowledge the judge, the clerk, or even the security officer near the door. She was the type of person who expected others to recognize her, not because of kindness or character, but because she believed she was simply better. She stood before Judge Caprio's bench, not with respect but with irritation. "Let's get this over with," she said, tossing her ticket down like trash. The room went still, not silent, but frozen. People shifted in their seats. Some widened their eyes. Others whispered. Judge Caprio simply looked at her, not surprised, not annoyed, just observing. He had seen arrogance before. He had seen frustration. But there was something different in her tone, something that said she had never been told no in her entire life. "Good morning," Judge Caprio replied softly, keeping his voice calm. "In this courtroom we speak respectfully. We'll go through your case one step at a time." Vanessa scoffed, rolled her eyes, and leaned back as if she owned the space. Her attitude filled the room like smoke. No one knew it yet. But this moment, this tiny spark of disrespect would ignite something far bigger. In less than 30 seconds, she would do something unthinkable, and it would change the entire courtroom. This was the calm before the storm. The morning had begun like any other at the Providence Municipal Court. People arrived with their paperwork, their explanations, their worries, and their hopes for a fair decision. The atmosphere was usually light here, almost surprisingly so for a courtroom. Many people said Judge Caprio didn't just listen to cases, he listened to people. Not just what they said, but how they felt. But on this particular day, the energy shifted the moment Vanessa entered. She didn't wait to be called. She stepped forward as if the courtroom was an inconvenience, as if the world was late in acknowledging her presence. The clerk gently tried to guide her. "Ma'am, you'll need to wait." Vanessa didn't let her finish. "No, you wait. I have places to be. I don't have time for this nonsense ticket." The clerk stepped back. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. Some people don't come to be heard. They come to dominate. Her ticket had been issued for parking in a no-parking zone outside a bakery. Simple, clear, a rule that applied to everyone, but Vanessa didn't see it that way. That spot is for important people. Everyone knows me in that neighborhood. I'm not some random nobody you can ticket. She spoke loudly enough for the gallery to hear. Several heads turned. Some people exchanged glances. A few lowered their eyes, uncomfortable. Others watched intently, because situations like this rarely ended quietly. Judge Caprio kept his composure. As always, "Miss, we will discuss the ticket shortly. But first I need you to calm down and speak respectfully. Everyone here receives the same consideration." Vanessa laughed, a short, sharp, mocking sound. "Oh, please. Don't lecture me. I'm not here to play court manners with you." There it was, the line, the moment that separated inconvenience from confrontation. The judge could have raised his voice. He could have ordered security to have her removed. But that wasn't who he was. Instead, he leaned slightly forward, his tone gentle but firm. "In this courtroom, we are all equals. You, me, everyone here. Respect is not requested, and it is required." The room grew still again. Some people nodded. Others held their breath, but Vanessa didn't soften. She didn't even consider it. Her pride was heavier than reason. "Equals?" she repeated, smirking. "I don't think so." She took a sip from her large takeaway coffee cup, the kind filled to the brim with steaming hot liquid. A small gesture, but something in the way she lifted it, slow, deliberate, set off a quiet warning in the back of the minds of those watching. Judge Caprio didn't change expression, but his eyes noted it. The tension was no longer subtle. It wasn't rising. It was already here. The clerk near the side table swallowed nervously. The officer near the door shifted his stance. Every person in that courtroom could feel it now. This wasn't just a ticket. This was about ego versus dignity, arrogance versus patience, chaos versus restraint. And the smallest spark would decide which one would win. The courtroom felt tighter now, as though the air itself understood what was coming. Even those who tried not to stare couldn't look away. Something in Vanessa's stance, the tilt of her chin, the sharp stillness in her shoulders, suggested she wasn't done. Not even close. Judge Caprio took a breath, the kind that carries patience but also warning. "Miss Vanessa," he said softly, "I'm going to ask again. Please calm yourself. We will address your ticket respectfully and fairly." But the word respectfully was the trigger. Her eyes narrowed behind her tinted sunglasses. She leaned forward, elbows on the stand in front of her, every movement exaggerated with meaning. "You think you get to talk to me like that?" she hissed quietly, but loud enough that those in the front row heard it. Someone in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. The judge didn't respond with anger. He simply looked at her, a look that held decades of experience, compassion, and understanding of human behavior. He had seen military veterans break down in tears. He had seen single mothers juggling 3 jobs. He had seen teenagers finding their way. He had seen pain, resilience, triumph, struggle. Everything but entitlement. He had learned you don't fight it with ego. You let it reveal itself. "I don't talk like anything," Judge Caprio answered. "I speak to you the same way I speak to anyone who stands here. With fairness." That word, fairness, landed like an insult in her world. Vanessa scoffed louder this time. "Fairness? Don't pretend you're some hero. This whole court is a joke." A quiet gasp moved through the room, a wave of disbelief that grew from one face to the next. Judge Caprio's voice didn't rise. "Miss Vanessa, you are very close to contempt of court. I am giving you every opportunity to stop and simply address your citation. But ego doesn't hear advice, it hears challenge." Vanessa's grip tightened around her coffee cup. Her knuckles turned white. The cup crinkled slightly under the pressure of her hand. The liquid inside shifted and the lid clicked faintly, and then, with a suddenness that shocked even herself, she threw the coffee forward. It wasn't a dramatic wind-up. No yelling, no warning, just a sharp flick of the arm, straight toward the judge's bench. The cup hit the wooden ledge before him, bursting open. Hot coffee splashed across the front of the bench, dripping down in thin streams. The room erupted in gasps and shouts. Security moved instantly. The officer near the door rushed forward. The clerk clapped a hand over her mouth. Someone in the gallery stood up, instinctively stepping backward. Judge Caprio didn't flinch. Not even a blink. He remained still, dignified, unmoved. And that stillness was more powerful than any angry reaction could have been. For the first time, Vanessa's confidence wavered. Just a flicker, but everyone saw it. That moment, the silence after impact, and was louder than the splash itself. The courtroom was no longer a place of argument. It had become a place of reckoning. For a moment, the world stopped. The courtroom, usually filled with the quiet rustle of paperwork and murmured conversations, had become completely still. The only sound was the slow drip of steaming coffee sliding down the front of the judge's bench, forming a small puddle on the polished floor. Vanessa didn't speak.
She didn't smirk.
She didn't shout. Even she couldn't believe what she had just done. Judge Frank Caprio sat there, untouched by even a drop. But the impact wasn't measured by the mess, it was measured by the meaning. This wasn't a spill. This wasn't a mistake. This was assault. A direct attack on the very symbol of justice. Security moved instantly. The nearest officer stepped forward, voice firm and controlled. "Miss, put your hands behind your back now." But Vanessa didn't comply. Her shock began to twist back into defiance, the same defiance that had driven her since she walked through the courtroom door. "You can't arrest me," she snapped, her voice trembling between outrage and disbelief. "Do you know who I am? I didn't even touch him." But that defense didn't matter. The courtroom understood the truth. Intent isn't always measured in the outcome, it's measured in the action. The officer reached for her arm. "Ma'am." Hands behind your back. Her sunglasses slipped slightly down her nose. Her polished exterior, the luxury, the attitude, the superiority, suddenly looked fragile. Like it was just thin glass covering something empty underneath. And in the center of it all, Judge Caprio still hadn't moved. No anger, no retaliation, no raised voice, just quiet presence. He slowly wiped the coffee from his bench with a tissue handed to him by the clerk. His movements were calm, deliberate, as though refusing to let chaos dictate control. Finally, he spoke. His voice was steady. Not loud, but it carried deeper than any shout ever could. "In all my years on this bench," he began slowly, "I have seen frustration, I have seen stress, but I have never witnessed someone choose disrespect in this way." Vanessa froze, not because of his authority, but because of the weight of disappointment in his tone. It was the kind of tone that doesn't punish your actions, it punishes your heart. "You were given every chance to speak with dignity," he continued, "every chance to be heard, and instead you chose to harm and to humiliate." The officer placed the handcuffs on her wrists. The sound clicked through the courtroom in a metal echo that felt like finality, gasps, whispers, silence. Some people shook their heads. Others looked down uncomfortable. A few watched with a quiet sense of justice. One older woman in the back whispered to her granddaughter, "This is why you treat people kindly, even when you're upset." Vanessa's expression finally cracked, not into tears but into realization. This wasn't about coffee. This wasn't about a ticket. This was about who she had become, and now everyone could see it. The courtroom watched in a heavy, suspended quiet as the officer tightened the cuffs around Vanessa's wrists. Her posture, once bold and towering with entitlement, now looked small, like a structure collapsing from its own weight. The sunglasses that had once signaled arrogance now seemed childish, almost like a mask she no longer had the strength to hold up. They tilted downward and finally slid off her face, landing softly at her feet. Her eyes were exposed, and for the first time, they showed something other than superiority. They showed fear. The officer guided her a step back from the defendant's podium. She turned slightly, looking at the room around her, the same room she had dismissed as beneath her only minutes earlier. The gallery did not look triumphant. There were no cheers, no satisfaction in her fall, just understanding, the kind that comes when a lesson is long overdue. Judge Caprio rested his hands on the bench, then slowly stood. Not to assert dominance, but to show presence. He looked at Vanessa the way a father looks at a child who has lost their way, with a sorrow deeper than anger. "Vanessa," he said quietly, "do you know what this courtroom is?" She stared, unable to speak. "This is not a place where we simply decide fines and violations. This is a place where people bring their burdens, their mistakes, their frustrations, their stories, and we find a way to resolve them with fairness." His voice carried through the room like a calm wave. "You believed you were above everyone here, above the rules, above the dignity of those around you. But respect is not a tribute paid to power. Respect is a reflection of who you are." Vanessa's breath hitched. Her chin trembled just slightly, but it was enough to show the truth. Her arrogance had never been strength. It had been armor. Judge Caprio continued, "I would have listened to you. I would have given you every opportunity to explain your situation. I would have treated you with patience as I do with everyone who stands before me. But you chose to shame yourself long before any verdict could have." The courtroom absorbed his words, each one precise, gentle, and unshakably firm. The officer took a step forward. Awaiting direction, Judge Caprio nodded to him, then looked back at Vanessa. "You will be escorted to holding while charges are processed. You will have legal counsel, and you will have your day in court again. But next time I hope you come as someone who understands what respect means." It was not a punishment. It was a chance. Perhaps the first real one she had ever been given. As Vanessa was led toward the exit, the room did not watch her with ridicule. They watched her like a mirror. Because everyone there understood. Arrogance is loud, but the lesson that follows it is always silent. Vanessa was escorted out of the courtroom, the soft echo of her heels fading down the corridor. The heavy door closed behind her, and the room slowly released a breath it didn't realize it had been holding. Yet the silence wasn't tense anymore, it was thoughtful. The kind of silence that comes after witnessing something meaningful. Judge Caprio remained standing for a moment, his hands resting gently on the bench. He didn't celebrate what happened. There was no satisfaction in seeing someone fall. He simply took a quiet pause to let the room settle. The clerk, an older woman named Mrs. Turner, approached the bench with a small towel to help wipe away the remaining streaks of coffee. Her movements were gentle, careful, the way people act when they respect the space they stand in. "I'm sorry that happened to you, Judge," she said softly, not out of pity, but out of genuine care. Judge Caprio shook his head. "No need to apologize," he replied. "People carry storms inside them. Sometimes they let them out in the worst ways." Mrs. Turner nodded, not out of agreement, but out of understanding. Behind them, the gallery began to shift. People stood, stretched, murmured quietly, but the weight of what they had seen lingered in the air. It had not just been an outburst. It had been a reminder that respect is not a small thing. The officer who had escorted Vanessa now returned, standing near the bench awaiting direction. Judge Caprio looked at him with a calm nod. "Make sure someone checks on her," he said. "Not just physically, emotionally." The officer paused. He didn't expect that. "Yes, Your Honor, I will." Judge Caprio wasn't excusing what she had done. He wasn't minimizing it, but he also didn't believe punishment alone teaches anything. He believed humanity does. He sat back down and addressed the courtroom one final time. "I'd like all of us to remember something," he said, voice warm, steady. "We don't always know what someone is going through, but even when life feels unfair, lashing out never leads to peace. Respect is not about who deserves it. Respect is about who we choose to be." Some nodded. Others simply stared ahead, letting the message settle where it needed to. Mrs. Turner smiled softly. The officer straightened his posture. A few tears quietly rolled down someone's cheek in the back row. The courtroom was no longer just a place of law. In that quiet moment, it was a place of learning. Day continued. Cases would resume. Life moved on. But no one in that room would ever forget the lesson they had witnessed. Power is not proven by dominance, but by the patience and dignity to remain calm when others are not. The courtroom slowly returned to its rhythm, but something in the atmosphere had shifted. People didn't just walk out with court slips and payment instructions. They walked out with a story they would remember, perhaps for the rest of their lives. Because what everyone had witnessed wasn't just a legal consequence. It was a human moment, a moment that revealed a truth many forget. Respect isn't for the powerful. Respect is what makes us human. Vanessa believed respect was something that had to be earned by status, that only people with wealth, confidence, or influence deserved to be treated well. But life has a way of teaching lessons at the exact moment we refuse to see them, and that lesson arrived not through anger, not through shouting, and not through punishment, but through calm dignity. Judge Caprio didn't raise his voice. He didn't humiliate her. He didn't throw back the same disrespect he was given. Instead, he demonstrated something far greater than authority, self-control. Because power isn't the ability to overpower someone. Power is the ability to remain kind, steady, and fair, even when someone else chooses chaos. There was no celebration in her consequences. No one left the courtroom saying, "She got what she deserved." People left saying something much deeper. "I hope she learns from this." And that is where this story matters. Not in the moment of impact, but in the change that follows. Maybe Vanessa will go home that night and realize how quickly pride can destroy peace. Maybe she will understand that respect cannot be bought, demanded, or forced. It can only be given freely as a reflection of character, and maybe someone watching this will see themselves in her, or see someone they love slipping down that same path and choose differently, because the truth is simple. You never know who you are hurting when you act from ego, but you always know who you become. And the person you become matters more than any ticket, argument, or victory ever will. So if you're here listening to this right now, if you believe kindness is not weakness, If you believe dignity is not outdated, if you believe respecting others even when they don't respect you back takes real strength, then I want you to do something. Type respect in the comments. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but as a reminder and a quiet promise into yourself to lead with humility, to act with grace, to treat others the way you hope to be treated. And before you go, tell me where you're watching from. I want to thank every heart who still believes in decency, personally, because the world changes one respectful voice at a time. And today, that voice might be yours.